It's 1975. A 19-year-old sits in his Harvard dorm room at 1 a.m., typing a letter to a computer company that has no idea who he is. He tells them he has the perfect software for their new computer. Except there's one problem. It doesn't even exist. Let's break down the strategies, mindset, and business moves that made Bill Gates one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time. Growing up in Gates' household, competition wasn't just encouraged. It was a way of life. Every success came with a reward, and every failure came with a consequence. Whether it was chess, sports, card games, or academics, his parents pushed him to compete relentlessly, knowing that winning wasn't just about the game, it was about building a mindset. As a child, Gates often described himself as spending a lot of time in his head, which made it difficult for him to connect with other kids. Concerned about his social development, his parents enrolled him at Lakeside Prep when he was 13. Little did they know, this decision would become the single greatest catalyst for his future success. As luck would have it, in 1968, a time when computers were enormous and exceedingly rare, Lakeside installed a terminal, giving students, including the newly enrolled Gates, access to precious blocks of computer time. For young Bill Gates, the computer presented him with a blank canvas, a world where his curiosity and intellect would come together to create infinite possibilities. Intellectual curiosity is essential for anyone who wants to be innovative. You have to ask the hard questions, and you have to be willing to dig for the answers. And so, he began to dig. A lot. He spent all the time he possibly could coding on the terminal, learning everything he could about the mythical machine. It was to the point that he would sneak out of the house at night and meet with his friend Paul Allen to have more time on the computer. This was Gates' ability to hyper-focus on full display. In 2 years, while in high school full-time, he got so good at programming that he was able to create a program that automated the school's class scheduling. This was in 1970, by the way. The computer that Gates used to create that program had less memory than your calculator. What you should take away from this part of Gates' life is not that you need to be a child prodigy, but more that curiosity, competitiveness, and commitment are core contributors to success. But how did any of this translate to his success in business? 2 years later, Gates' close friend Paul Allen was working at the Washington State Department of Transportation when he noticed something strange. The local government was using rubber tubes stretched across segments of road to record traffic data on little paper tapes, recording each time a car passed. Pushing his curiosity further, he figured that someone had to process all of this raw data into something that could actually be used by engineers. As it turned out, he was right. A horde of government workers had to manually and meticulously sort all of the data into individual reports, making the process extremely expensive for the government. When Allen shared his observation with Gates, they realized that they had a business opportunity on their hands. If they could use the programming knowledge they had gathered over the past few years to create a system that would automate the processing of the paper tapes, they could sell it as a service to the government. Gates and Allen had the idea. Now, they just needed the machine to bring it to life. But there was one problem. They had no experience whatsoever designing hardware. Through a network of tech-savvy friends at the University of Washington, they eventually found an electrical engineering student with the skills to build their device from scratch. As he was working on the machine that would process the paper tapes, Gates and Allen wrote the software, testing it on a university mainframe before the hardware was even finished. Everything was coming together, until it didn't. When the time came to demo their machine for a local government official, it failed. Just like that, their months of hard work blew up in their face. But, instead of quitting, they offered the software they had built for the data analysis part instead. By selling the software, they made a little money, gained a ton of experience, and unknowingly built the foundation for one of the greatest business partnerships the world would ever see. 1973. It's time for Gates to go to university. After scoring 1590 out of 1600 on his SAT, he easily got accepted at Harvard. Just like in high school, Gates spent all the time he could coding at the university's computer lab. Except this time, it seems that technology had finally caught up to his skill set. Gates was sitting in his college dorm room, reading an issue of Popular Electronics, when he came across something incredibly unusual. The Altair 8800 microcomputer. This was something he had never seen before. A computer designed to be owned and operated by an individual. For the first time, instead of the computer being a huge and expensive mainframe shared by multiple users, the computer could be in the hands of individual users in a much smaller and cheaper package. But there was one major problem. The Altair was basically a heap of components, useless to most users who weren't computer enthusiasts. To transform what was a collection of circuits and wires into a useful tool, it needed software that would allow users to perform tasks like word processing, calculations, games, and much more. Gates knew that it didn't matter how small or affordable the computer was if people couldn't do anything with it. He saw this lack of software not as a liability, but as an opportunity. Whoever could create the software for these early personal computers could shape the future of the industry. But he wasn't about to put in weeks of work into making software for the Altair without even knowing if MITS, the company who made the computer, would be interested. Gates made the bold move of sending them a message saying that he had already been working on software for the Altair. He knew that this bold bluff was the best chance he had at convincing this little company to give him a shot. Lucky for him, they did. The head of MITS agreed to meet them for a demo of their work. The problem with the bluff is that there actually was no work. Gates and Allen had 8 weeks to create the entirety of the software from scratch. For 2 months, they grinded and grinded, applying all the knowledge and experience they had built up since high school. Finally, the time of the demonstration had come. Because Gates was still at Harvard, Paul Allen had to give the demo alone. Scared and nervous, he went down to MITS headquarters in Albuquerque. The test was simple. Load the software into the Altair's memory and type in a simple command and see how the computer would respond. Print 2 plus 2. Four. Success. Paul Allen sighed in relief. As a result of the successful demo, MITS offered the duo to buy a license for their software. Gates and Allen knew they needed to formalize their partnership, and so they were legally known as Microsoft.